All right, everyone, a warm welcome back to the show. As you probably know, my name is Sky Denton, and I'm really happy to include you in today's show. It's a little bit different. Peter's not here, so it's just me today. You get a Sky Denton monologue, and the goal of today's show is, of course, to have fun, to talk about healing, and to share with you information that I know that you will find useful. So a quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am not practicing medicine. I am a health and wellness expert. I've studied the mind-body connection for 10 years, and I healed from ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthritis, and irritable bowel syndrome, and psoriasis. So I know a thing or two, and I want to thank everyone. The show just hit 7,000 downloads, which is really fun. And I like including you all in my life a little bit. I think that transparency is really, really important. And I like to live my life with as much candor as I can and be upright, be forthcoming, be honest, and tell you all what I know. So in honoring of that, I'm going to tell you what ankylosing spondylitis is, in my opinion and in my experience in life. I'm also going to tell you some of the things I would have loved to have been told when I was first diagnosed. These are things that I learned years after the fact, and I wish that a doctor would have told them to me. And again, that's not the typical doctor's job. Allopathic medicine is not looking towards holistic health and wellness like I do. So it wasn't their job. But for those of you out there, and for those of you out there that are newly diagnosed, that are looking for answers, that might be relatively new to this way of thinking, I think that you will really find a lot of solace and positivity in what I have to say about what I wish I would have been told. I'm also going to share with you a couple reviews. There are two of them specifically I'm going to share, and I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset with them. They are very opposite of each other. For those of you that don't like me, you're really going to like the first review because it is a burn. It is a hard burn. And it's something that I have, at this point, kind of gotten used to. I don't take it personally. Everyone has their own belief systems about the world, how their bodies work, what they're able to accomplish in life. And the other review is very positive, it's very supportive, and it's very nurturing. And I'll talk about the mindsets of the people that wrote those reviews and where they are headed because of those mindsets. I also have a couple of questions I'm going to answer that just came in right before the show. So let's get right to it, everyone. Ankylosing spondylitis, what is it? We've all been told different things. Your doctors have likely told you that it is a degenerative form of spinal arthritis that is likely genetic in nature, that it is connected to the gene HLA-B27, and that it is something that is mysterious, incurable, and has a pretty scary prognosis. Those 5 or 6 things I just mentioned are relatively universal for people that have gone through the typical allopathic diagnostic process. Let's go deeper. What is ankylosing spondylitis? Flash forward to today. I've seen dozens of people heal from this disease, some with the help of other coaches, some with the help of my coaching. All of us have come to a conclusion that ankylosing spondylitis is long-term, unresolved emotional pain, oftentimes originating from shame, which is this belief that I am not enough, I am not good enough, I need to be more. That right there is much more than just an inner narrative. It's much more than just self-talk. It's actually, to a very large degree, designing how your autonomic nervous system is going to be functioning every day. The belief that I am not enough creates a lot of stress in the body. And when I say that AS is unresolved emotional pain, to boil that down to an even simpler state, it's stress. It is long-term stress. I don't get people on the phone that come to me that have AS that, when they really feel into it, can honestly say that at a deep level, they're happy. Everyone to some degree can recognize like that they're struggling with things, that they're hard on themselves, that they are feeling lethargic. They don't have a lot of energy. They're tired. They're angry. They're frustrated. There are certain things in their life that aren't fair. That originates and creates a lot of emotional pain and stress. So that's what we work with in this type of coaching, is helping people understand what is going on there and help them, teach them the tools to reverse that process. That is what ankylosing spondylitis is, you guys. It is not this mysterious, incurable disease. Like, that is bullshit. And I know that that's a bold statement. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that would disagree, many doctors included. And I'm going to stand by it because I'm the one that's read the books. I'm the one that's actually healed from this disease and seen enough other people do it to understand that that is a conclusive statement. Now, I always have more to learn. I'm not saying that that's finite and I'm finished working on my growth in this area of understanding long-term emotional pain, but that's what AS is. And those people that can accept that and begin to take responsibility for their health are the people that learn how to heal. One thing I found, and you'll see this in one of the reviews that I'm going to share in a minute, is that if we stay victimized, if we stay thinking that we have this genetic incurable disease and there's nothing we can do about it, that's where the road ends. Just more pain, more victimization, and not taking responsibility for the health. When people can take responsibility for their health, they then have the ability to make an impact, to change the outcome. One thing I tell clients is, if someone is not willing to take any responsibility for their health, then they also forfeit all their ability to do something positive, to improve themselves, to change the outcome. It's taking responsibility that is one of the first steps. So what are some of the things that I would have loved to have been told when I was first diagnosed and I was scared and I was angry? For one, I wish someone would have told me that there are people that heal from AS. Deep down in my heart, in every cell in my body, when I could quiet my mind, I knew it was possible to heal. There was absolutely no denying that when I really was able to feel inside. That being said, I still really identified with the fearful thoughts I was having. I was scared, I was angry. How could this happen to me? How could this be my life? This is unreal. Like, hell no, I am terrified. I'm going to live a life of disability. Those were still thoughts I was having. And I imagine that a lot of you out there can resonate with a fair amount of that. I also, when I could quiet my mind and just feel into my heart, I was like, yes, like I know it's possible. I don't know how, I don't know who, but it is possible. My body is smart. Humans are smart. There are so many smart people in this world that someone has figured out some way to heal. I wish someone would have told me to listen to that inner voice as much as possible. Because although that inner voice was there, I still spent several years really scared, really angry, really sad, really frustrated, really pissed off. I remember being so angry that my friends could go to music festivals and have fun and dance and drink and party and abuse their bodies. And here I was, like, absolutely babying myself, just eating nothing but organic food and just really taking all these supplements and doing everything I could just to function in life. And here were people that just could go do whatever and abuse their bodies for the sake of partying. I was so pissed. I was so pissed at that. And I think a lot of you have experienced that. So, one of the things I wish that I was told and that I am telling you now is that people do heal from this disease. I also wish that someone would have told me that diets are not necessary in order to heal when we understand the deeper realms of our mind body connection and the body's natural physiology and nervous system. One of the reasons that diets can work is a healthy, clean diet will reduce the amount of inflammation in your body naturally to a certain degree. And so, if someone is diagnosed with AS and they're eating a lot of processed crap, then yes, just like someone who's not diagnosed with AS, it would benefit them to clean up their diet, right? Like let's be real. If we're eating Twinkies and processed garbage, it's just not going to optimize the functioning of our body. That being said, human beings, when we go into fear mode, we like to control our environment. Take this for example. So a stressed out mother, the first thing she'll try and do if her kids are like running all over and like she's really stressed, the first thing she's going to typically try and do is control her kids. If someone is in their house and they're feeling really stressed, a common thing we like to do is clean. It's our way of kind of controlling our environment. It helps us feel safe. It helps us feel organized. It helps the clutter of our mind kind of settle. And then we just feel a little bit better because we feel a little bit more in control. When someone with ankylosing spondylitis or the myriad of other diseases out there, when they begin to do a diet, yes, it's good to keep a clean diet. And then what happens is they really begin to believe in the diet, and it gives them something that they can control. They can control what they eat every day, and it gives them a little assurance or a little bit of safety because of that control. Diets, the actual food, is kind of secondary to the mental process of control and the security that comes from that. With the security of trusting in a diet or trusting in a coach, feeling that security regulates our nervous system in a way that we come into the parasympathetic nervous system response more, which is the rest, the heal, the digest, the repair type of state of being, versus the sympathetic nervous system response, which is the go, 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 the fight or flight. And when our body is in the sympathetic response, we don't heal. we have to come back down into a place of relaxation in order to let the healing happen. So diets, I just see people struggling for years trying to figure out the exact diet that they think is going to work, but they're not accounting for the rest of the stress in their life, with work, with relationships, with their body, with exercise, with food, with their identity, what they think they can do in the world, who they feel like they are, how safe they feel in the world. Those matter more than, can I eat a bite of pancake or not? So for those of you on the diets, eat well. If you have something that's working for you, keep going. As you've heard me say before, and you've heard Peter say this, we're a fan of doing anything that helps. The thing is that diets can fall very short of giving people the freedom that I want for them in their lives. You can Google and YouTube people that have healed from AS, and they claim that they did it through diets. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, yippee, anything that helps relieve pain is great. And if you have to avoid starch for the rest of your life, I don't want that for you. I want better for you. And I think you do as well. I also wish that someone would have told me that chronic pain diseases can be linked to different personality types. And I was the classic. So the 3 personality types of the people pleaser, the perfectionist, and the achiever. And these personality traits tend to create enough tension in our bodies to eventually, if nothing changes over time, kick off a funky immune system response. Maybe it shows up as psoriasis. Maybe it shows up as Crohn's disease. Maybe it shows up as colitis. Maybe it shows up as ankylosing spondylitis. Every body is a little bit different and unique in that. And that being said, those personality traits are pretty universal. So those are just a couple things I wish that I would have been told. What a positive alternative that I could have had some doctor been like, hey, Sky, people heal from this disease. There are things that you can do. And instead, I was told that there was no cure and nothing I could do but be on medication and live a life of some level of disability. And at that time, I was quite disabled. So it was a very, very scary feeling. Okay, so now I'm going to read you these reviews. These are great. So this is a burn. And I want you all to listen closely to this. And I want you to think about 2 things. I want you to think about the negativity in what you are hearing. I want you to think about how someone is feeling as they write something like this. And I want you to think about how that feeling would affect their body. Okay? He says, Sky, you are nothing more than a despicable con artist preying on the desperation of those suffering excruciating pain from this horrible condition. Shame on you. If you really do suffer from AS at all and have experienced all you profess to, how could you possibly want to profit from other people's pain and suffering? It's tough enough trying to live with crippling pain without people like you deceiving, adding more stress with your insidious motives. Try to be a decent human being and help others with genuine kindness and pure intent, not make them feel worse and add to their suffering. So quite an interesting perspective. And it's not something that I dismiss. I'll admit that when I first started receiving messages like this, they were hard for me to take. I was so excited to tell the world that people can heal from this disease. All they have to do is take responsibility for their health, admit that they have some emotional stress and triggers, and learn to work through them in order to balance their body out. This person is having a very hard time stepping out of being victimized. They're also really defending their illness. So who knows where they'll be a couple years from now? It's a really interesting thing to think about. With this type of mindset, I don't think they're going to get any better. Maybe they will find something. I imagine some medication can help them, but that's going to be about it, because the mindset is one of anger and stress and resentment. And that is what I want you all to begin to feel in your own system. And this is just a really clear example of someone who's angry. And that anger is what we want to highlight, to understand a little bit more, and to learn to let go of as we take responsibility for our health and let that anger go. It leads to a completely different mindset and a completely different future. Okay, this next one is very different. This is a very recent testimonial. The title of it is Hope Through Transparency. This person says, "Thank you," in full caps. "I've been dealing with chronic back pain from a car accident from 15 years ago, and I just went to the Mayo Clinic to be diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis. I am an Ironman triathlete, mom of 2, registered nurse, positive motivator, coach, and yet this new diagnosis slammed me to my core. I sincerely appreciate you doing this podcast, being transparent with your story, and giving me hope. There's help beyond meds and Western medicine. Congrats on your healing, and thank you for helping me establish my journey to healing. Keep up the fantastic work." So that has a very different tone. That's pretty obvious. This person is, whether conscious of this or not, they're willing to take more responsibility for their health. That's why when they hear someone like me who's like, "Hey, check this out, we can bust our stress and evolve out of this emotional pain and into a better future, and along with that, the pain can go away," they're like, "Yes, I can do that. I can work with this. I feel hopeful and I believe in myself." This positive review, I think that if you take anything from it, this person believes that more is possible for them. And they also are willing to take responsibility for their health. So pretty fun. I don't know who left this review. It's on Amazon. So thank you, Amazon reviewer. And thank you to the person who left that angry one, because that is something that I learned a lot from. Okay. So think about those mindsets of these two different people. Think about where they could potentially be a few years in the future, and who's going to have the better outcome, right? They both get to be right. Hope through transparency, that's amazing. And that person gets to be right about that. The other person is also right in their own mind. It's just that that rightness is going to lead them down a very different path. And I want a better path for you. Okay, so let's get into some of these questions. I have 2 questions that came in right before this show, and I think that they are important to answer. One of them comes from a friend of mine in India, and he says, "Hey, Sky, for the past few days, I've been playing Grand Theft Auto online. And the problem is this: I think that after playing the game, my pain comes back because I'm feeling anxious as I play the game. For example, sometimes my character is close to dying and the game runs very fast. Does this provoke the fight or flight response of the body? And does it get the body out of homeostasis? Basically, does it potentially cause pain? So that's a really good question, and something that I think is going to universally continue to be an issue in today's fast-paced world. And the answer is yes, it can cause pain. And the reason is because although physically we are sitting in a living room just staring at a computer and we're not running away from something that could potentially hurt or kill us, our mind is moving quickly. We are engaged in a tremendous amount of very fast-paced visual stimulation. And it's like watching a scary movie or a thriller movie. We can be sitting there basically not moving. So by lots of people's standards, like, oh, I'm relaxed, I'm just sitting here. But your subconscious mind does not understand that what you're watching is completely fake. That's why if you're watching a scary movie or you're playing a video game or you're watching some exhilarating scene on TV, the visual stimulation of what your mind is seeing can pull your body into a response where your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, and you start to go into the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response. This is stress, you guys. This is the exact same stress that over time causes immune issues. So my friend here is very on point when he talks about this. I believe it's also one of the reasons why the autoimmune epidemic worldwide is increasing. It's fast-paced society. It is accepting certain cultural norms of stress, like playing video games a lot or having to work 40, 50, 60, 80 hours a week, and combined with not eating very good food. Those things ultimately do lead to immune issues, especially when they compound, as in what I just said. So the quick answer is yes. Watching a bunch of scary movies or stimulating movies or playing video games, it releases a lot of dopamine in the brain. It releases a lot of norepinephrine. It releases a lot of adrenaline. It releases a lot of cortisol. Those are all stimulants and they are addicting. They give us a high. They get us moving quickly. And lots of times we like that sensation. That's why we desire to play things like Grand Theft Auto or other video games or watch scary movies. It's because of this high that it gives us. And that's okay in the short term. But if your life is fast-paced, you're connected to the internet, you're watching tons of YouTube, you're stressed out at work, and then you come home and continue to stimulate yourself with things like Grand Theft Auto, it's too much stress. Dr. John Sarnos talks about what he calls the rage to soothe ratio. Rage, we can reframe that to be stress. So it's the stress to soothe ratio. We have to keep it in check. If we have enough stress in our life and we don't get enough soothe, that is a problem. What I do for clients, what I did for myself, what other mentors and coaches helped me do was to increase the amount of soothe ratio I had in my life. It was just some subtle shifts in my mind about what I was thinking and what I decided to do with my free time. So I believe that that answers that question pretty thoroughly. And of course, there's more that can be talked about that, but for now, we'll just leave it. The next question comes from someone and she says, Sky, yesterday was a super sunny and nice day and I had no pain, exclamation point. And then today is dark and cloudy and I have pain. What is happening here? And this is a woman who's in Argentina. So there's kind of a language barrier in what she's saying here, but that's the gist of what she's saying. And the answer is yes. Barometric pressure does oftentimes influence people's pain levels. And the reason is because when there's a high pressure system, which is a bright, sunny day, a couple things. For one, we tend to have a happier mood on a nice day. And there's also, when I say high pressure, it's like there's more pressure pushing down on our bodies when that's happening. And so what it does is actually in the joints, and especially in the joints that have been damaged by injury or have arthritis, that pressure is like pushing down and kind of like condensing and squeezing the fluid in the joints. And as you know, inflammation, an increase in fluid causes pain. So these high pressure systems, these sunny days, that high pressure pushes down on the joints, it constricts that fluid, and it kind of squeezes it all together. So it's basically smaller. That is why we have less pain from a physical standpoint on a day that's sunny. And again, I'm going to bring this back to sunny days. We tend to be happier. We tend to feel more confident. We tend to be more excited about life. All of those help us process pain in a way where it doesn't bring us down as much. We might experience some pain, but it's not as big of a deal if we're feeling good, if we're feeling positive about life. So the opposite of what she's saying, the cold days, the rainy days, these are the classic low pressure systems. So I'll give you an example. I live in a very small mountain town. I can feel when a low pressure system is on its way because I can feel some of that sensation in my body as well. And then sure enough, like these big dark clouds come rumbling over the Rocky Mountains and it gets cold, and it's the low pressure system. The low pressure system allows our joints and the fluid in the joints to expand. That fluid that is otherwise being pressurized, pushed down, constricted by the high pressure, now doesn't have so much pressure pushing down on it. It causes it to expand, or even more inflammation to come into the joint because of this, thus causing more pain. It can be a little bit complicated. I imagine that this concept will be new for some of you, and I imagine that a lot of you have experienced this in life, whether or not you knew why it was happening. So some things you can do about it. Vitamin D can be something helpful there. Eating a clean diet, like we talked about. If it's important to take an anti-inflammatory, again, that can help as well. And also just understand the greater process of what's happening with the pressure in the atmosphere and how it affects us as people living on Earth. All right, everyone. So that was a long monologue. And within it is a lot of good content. There's a lot of meat in what I said today. Listen closely to what ankylosing spondylitis is and the things that I wish I would have been told. And if you know someone who's going through this process of being terrified because they just got diagnosed, share with them what I shared with you today. If you've listened to this podcast for very long, you've heard me say that we're a family. The ankylosing spondylitis community worldwide is tens and tens of millions of people. The more we can share the stuff that helps, the better we're all going to be. We now have over 7,000 downloads, which is great, and it continues to grow, both in numbers of viewers as well as locations around the world. You can contact me at skydenton.com. And I thank you all for being part of this community. I thank you all for being part of the one and only podcast that I know of that talks about healing from ankylosing spondylitis. We're not here bitching. We're not here being victimized. We're showing up well, we're learning, and we're healing our lives from a disease that would otherwise continue to crush us. We are evolving out of pain. We are building new habits, and we get rewarded for that work big time.